What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast, episode number 203. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbert, and joined with me is the captain, Mr. Andy Full. What's going on, dude?
Not a whole lot. I just noticed that I think we're wearing the same colored shirt.
Yeah, I think yours is the samurai, right?
Yeah, it's got like the built-in hood.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I needed that today. Dude, it's that time of year in the Northeast where it is 26 degrees when you launch, and by the time you get off, you're sweating balls when it's like 65, 72 degrees, like sunny bacon. You're just dying. Yeah, you got to bring change of clothes. It's because it's just that time of year. It sucks, but not arguing because the fish are loving it and they're eating about everything that comes by their face.
Yep.
So can't argue at all. I had a very good day today. Almost touched 26 pounds for the first time in 2021. Had 25.97. That comes out to 25 pounds, 15 ounces. So literally almost touched it.
Heck
but
yeah.
No mega giants, but a bag all of 5-pounders and can't argue with it. So it was lights on as soon as I got there and left them biting. So
was that like your second or third biggest like weight bag from the kayak fun fishing? It's up there.
I've had a few 26s. I had one almost touch 27. And I don't even know how many I have in the 25s. But either way, I mean, it can't like downplay a 25-pound bag. But either way, it was an absolute blast. It was a riot. Dude, I caught probably 50 fish, and 2 of them were green. The rest were all brown. And I've talked to you about this before. It's kind of weird compared to the last few years. And like you had reinforced in me today is that every year is different. It's just so weird to kind of see when there's something new because there's so many different variables going throughout your head. It's like, especially in New York, I mean, we have some lakes that are notorious for fish kills, and
yeah,
it just scares you sometimes if some fish are behind, and slowly there's more coming, and it's kind of good to see, but it's like, it still kind of worries you, and it's in the back of your mind every now and then.
Give it a week.
Yeah. Either way, it's bonkers right now. Things are setting up right, and all is right in the world again. We don't have any more ice, and it's fun.
Yeah, we're starting to jack. Dude, I'm excited for next week. We're going to get to fish a couple times. It's going to be fun.
Dude, we haven't been in a boat together since, Niagara River last year for the derb?
Honeyway in the fall.
Oh, right. Yeah. See, I try to forget about that day.
And then we went the next day, Canisius, and you caught 2, and I broke off a tiger muskie or something. They draft right off. So
yeah. Had that glide fish in like late November. That was sick. But either way, we have a very fun episode tonight. We have Mr. Adam RISER on. We'll be talking about a bunch of different things pertaining to kayak fishing and smallmouth down in Tennessee. And as always with this show, we pride ourselves on our tangents and rabbit holes that we go down. So it's going to be a pretty fun episode tonight. And I think without further ado, Andrew, Mr. Adam RISER, what's going on, dude?
Howdy. Thanks for having me on, y'all. I was listening to the 200th episode while I was loading up the truck today and enjoying that one. That sounded like an extra fun one. So congrats on you guys for knocking out 200 episodes. That's no joke.
It's we've been grinding, man. But yeah, 200 is probably, honestly, 200 was fun, but it's probably the worst episode to like introduce someone to the show to, because like talk about complete and utter unorganized and just chaos.
Yeah.
That's the idea with that one, right? Is to not have to worry about all the stresses of, keeping it quote professional and all that. And like, I've happily cherry picked you guys' podcast for a long while now. So yeah, I've been happy to be with you guys.
Yeah, of course, dude. We're happy to have you on here. And real quick, we pride ourselves. You mentioned that keeping things professional. We pride ourselves on being unprofessionally professional, where it's like it might look kind of clean, but like how it's run is not clean whatsoever.
Hey, that's my style too.
Perfect.
Even that may be a stretch.
Yeah. Well, dude, before we get too deep into the show, for us, because I know we've chatted a little bit here over social media in the past few weeks. Obviously kept tabs, like watching you through social media for the past year, kind of, seeing your tournaments and obviously your fishing stuff. And, but I haven't really got the chance to actually learn about you. So for myself, for Andrew, and for the folks tuning in, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started fishing in the first place and who installed that passion in you.
And
Sure. So I live in Nashville, Tennessee now, but I grew up in Florence, Alabama. So I had Pickwick Lake and Wilson Lake as basically my backyard waters. And common story, the catfish ponds, like a lot of people do, bobber fishing growing up. But luckily, you could just walk the banks of the Tennessee River where I grew up and catch all kinds of species. You could just kind of show up, not know what you're doing, and catch something. So I was always brought up around camping and just fishing wherever you're around water. So I think I gained an interest and appreciation at a pretty young age. And at 21, I moved out to Southern California in Orange County, Huntington Beach. And I took up surfing. Surfing was a big part of my life for many years. Then I had a back injury that took me away from surfing, but I still, while I was rehabbing that injury, wanted to be around water, needed to be outside. Started bank fishing some of the local Orange County ponds, and met a guy there that was basically starting at the same spot that I was as far as his learning curve and everything. And he ended up having a tandem kayak, so we ended up taking those kayaks to some ponds and places where we were like, man, we wish we could always cast over to those clump of reeds or something. And so I guess this was around 2010, 2011, I started hopping a kayak in Southern California. Fishing is much more challenging out there as far as accessibility more than anything. So I got into a lot of ninja fishing, a lot of backpacking, a lot of like hopping fences at night and doing some night fishing, and enjoyed that. But got my first dabble in interest in actual bass fishing, not just whatever fishing, out in Southern California. And I think around 2013, I knew I had to moved back to the Southeast to Florence, Alabama for a few years. And I knew I was going to be around great fishing, and picked up a kayak as soon as I got back to Alabama, and just got a fast forwarded education on bass fishing, in my opinion, because Pickwick's such an incredible place, and you can learn so much, all kinds of different techniques, and whatever you want to do, you can do it there. So I attribute Pickwick to a lot of my whatever knowledge I have. I credit that lake to that. And then around, 2015 or so, I moved up to the Nashville area, found out that there was kayak clubs and stuff. Craig Dye and a few other people were running the club around here. So I owe a lot to Craig Dye as far as ushering me into the kayak community and the kayak bass fishing community. And then Nashville, as a lot of people know, is just an overall hub for kayak fishing. Between Hook One Outfitters that used to be here, and Chad Hoover kind of putting his roots down here. It was just and it's an incredible place for kayak fishing. And so the opportunities, be it like just fun fishing or in clubs, were very prevalent here. And after just maybe a year of club fishing, I was all in, man. I just wanted to take it further. It just did a lot of good for me. That's been it for the last 5 or 6 years. It's if I can fish a KBF event, and then it turned into a Hobie event. Now it's a Bass Nation event. Now it's whatever I can get into. And I'm passionate about bass fishing from a kayak and just fishing in general to an unhealthy degree. I neglect responsibilities in my life to go out and chase green and brown fish is what I find. So that's the short story of it, man. So I've kind of got roots in the South, but also I take a lot of my education on fishing from West Coast stuff too, because I got to see a lot of stuff they do out there that's different, and their concepts are different. But that's it, man. I just love bass fishing, and it's pure. It's a pretty pure bass fishing thing too. I can't really claim that I do much else aside from that.
Yeah, it's a healthily unhealthy addiction, I think, is probably one of the better ways to put it. But real quick, I loved how you called bank fishing ninja fishing. I think that adds a level of badassery to fishing from the bank. I've never heard it called.
Well, when you have a pond that is confirmed has good fish in it, but you're not legally supposed to be in there, you may or may not acquire some bolt cutters, and you may or may not go in there at midnight where you have access to the place. And if I don't know if you ever fished out in California or Southern California, but man, an average lake out there, you have to, if you're launching a boat, you got to show up, you got to hop in line with a bunch of other boats and trailers. They got to inspect your whole thing. You can only, you get to launch after the prime morning bite usually. You got to pay to do it. You got to be off the water before the evening bite happens. It's just such a pain to do it. It's why you got so many West Coast guys that are so good, because their adversity just to get out and cast a line is a lot more than what a lot of people are used to in other parts of the country. So again, you can just learn a lot just from the adversity you got to fish around out there too. But yeah, definitely stuffed the backpack with some tackle boxes, wore all black or camo, and hopped a few fences. The golf courses are really good out there too, and you got to get a little sneaky, but it's all worth it.
Heck yeah, dude. Talking about paying to use ramps like New York's like that too. That is one of the many reasons why I love being in Tennessee, is not having to pay for a boat ramp, unless obviously like campgrounds or something like that might have like a $5 fee. But for the most part, every ramp is free.
There's a few, but dude, where I grew up, it was the TVA fisheries. Not only can you just launch whenever you want, like every day of the year, you can literally camp on a lot of these like pull off areas too, like for free, legal. I mean, it's not like you got any kind of hookup or anything, but yeah, it's pretty wide open. Last year when they were restricting people going on the water, I was like, man, if they try to restrict people down here from going on the water, they're going to run into an uprising, because that is not what they're used to at all. They're very spoiled with our accessibility from lakes, creeks, rivers, highland reservoirs, muddy, lowland stuff. We got it all here, and you can kind of just every day hit a completely different place. And it's why so many good anglers come from out of the Southeast, because they get education of all types of fishing. It's all here.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Now, what was your first memorable experience fishing a tournament from a kayak?
My very first tournament, it was with KBFTN, the club here in Nashville. I was nervous. My goal for it was to just not have any penalties, not like get DQ'd for anything. That was my goal. And I think I placed fourth and got paid. So I got a check in my first tournament. And that right there gave me the confidence to go at it, more tournaments beyond that. So, yeah, just that first one. I remember it. I have an awful memory, but I remember that tournament distinctly, catching my first couple of fish on a drop shot and thinking like, wait, this is all it takes to get paid in a club tournament. And,
you're like,
that was it. Yeah, totally. And and I didn't know if I could do it, and I didn't know if what I was doing was right. And I had no like when I was getting into kayak fishing in Alabama, I was around no other kayak anglers. I went out by myself every single time, so I didn't know to what level my skill set was at the time. And so being able to come to the Nashville area and hop around and get into some events allowed me to see kind of like what the level of competition was at the time,
Right.
Yeah. Now, you recently had a derb on Pickwick, correct?
Indeed. Yeah, I did the KBF tournaments, the two separate days, but under identical, not conditions, but the same terms on a Saturday and Sunday, correct?
Right, yeah. How did that end up going for you?
I just did okay. I was like in the top 25% or so, something like that. Just all right. I knew that literally that week of the year can be one of the absolute best weeks possible. I think a lot of the bass fishing community watched the elite event that was the week before ours there. And the story was the rising water. Pickwick fluctuates 6 foot between their winter and summer pool, and it fluctuated the entire way in a matter of a couple of days, coming from low to high, and it went above the full pool and coming back down. And Pickwick, when you're creeping up on the spawn, if you can catch it when it's stable, or especially when it's full pull, it's hard to beat that. Some of the best bags I've caught in my life have been during that time. Our tournament, we were allowed to fish Wilson and Wheeler too, which that's over 200 miles of river, not including any of the creeks at all. And Wilson and Wheeler, they only fluctuate maybe 2 foot in their winter pool, so they're more stable. I tried fishing a little bit of Pickwick the first day of the tournament. Only was on it for about an hour before I packed up and went to Wilson. And I ended up spending not only the rest of Saturday on Wilson, but I did the entirety of Sunday on Wilson too. Caught them all right. I think I got 11th place out of 80 something or something, maybe 70 something on Saturday off a patch of grass, which we'll talk about that in a second. And then on Sunday, went to the same place And there was only one other angler at my ramp that Sunday morning, and that was Eric Collins, the guy who ended up winning on Sunday. And he knocked on my truck door before I launched that morning, and he's like, "Hey, I saw you were fishing that patch of grass yesterday," and he's like, "I was wanting to start there too." I was like, "Go for it, man." I was like, "I'm gonna hit it too," but I was like, "I appreciate you asking," and the good communication. I was like, "Go for it." And then he and I probably rotated that grass 4 or 5 times that day. He just caught it right at noon when those big ones pulled up, and he got the winning bag off of that patch of grass that I'd fished since I was a kid. So I thought that was kind of cool, and that dude was really, really nice and really good guy, best I could tell. So I was happy that Eric won that one. But that was it. It was cool just being around back home, around waters I was familiar with. But ended up fishing Wilson, but under normal conditions, it'd be hard to pull me away from Pickwick. I really, really love Pickwick as a fishery.
Yeah, I have a few questions about it. Well, the first thing is Wilson is usually the most consistent with water level, correct? That's the one they usually try to keep at the same pool.
Yeah, it won't change that much. Water rising 3 or 4 inches on Wilson is a big deal. Whereas if it comes, 3 or 4 inches on Pickwick, that's nothing. You don't got to sweat that too much. So, Wilson's pretty stable. Wheeler's pretty stable. Like if you go up to Chickamauga, it's got a 4 or 6 foot fluctuation. Kentucky Lake's got a 6 foot fluctuation between winter and summer pool. So yeah, Wilson more stable, and you can always kind of show up and cast at the same targets. You don't have to worry about them being completely out of water or anything like that.
Right. Interesting.
Less launches though. It's a tougher kayak lake because you don't have as many places to access. But the tail race is excellent on that one as well. Wilson's good. Wilson's really good. I think people would still like to go fish Pickwick or Wheeler. Wheeler's coming back in a strong way, but man, there's plenty of good fishing on Wilson for sure.
Right. And Wheeler's more of a greenhead fishery, isn't it, than it is a smallmouth?
Very much so. In the last 6 or 7 years, we were all talking about it at our house at Pickwick a week or so ago. They sprayed all the grass for the last several years, and Wilson really took a downturn. And then it's my understanding, I haven't seen it in person, but based on my buddies that were all fishing it during practice and before the event, apparently that grass has come back. Wheeler's firing now, like really good. It's looking kind of like it's a heyday going back a decade or more ago. So I think you're going to hear a lot more hype and a lot more good talk about Wheeler, as long as they don't spray that grass on the Decatur Flats, which is kind of one of the more notable popular fishing areas there.
I had heard about them spraying the grass there, and it was kind of weird for me because I feel like you guys, at least from a governing standpoint, take bass fishing much more serious because, like, up here in New York, they could give a damn about the bass. They don't care at all. They spray a lot of our lakes. That's why I was very shocked to see that they spray grass down there.
They spray it pretty hard, man. I can't think of a TVA, a Tennessee River fishery that hasn't got sprayed, and that includes even more TVA fisheries too outside of the Tennessee River chain. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world. I mean, Kentucky Lake, you can say it's the carp that's hurt that place, and the carp definitely does hurt it. But I think more than the carp, my personal opinion is them getting rid of all that grass on Kentucky Lake hurts more. I mean, if you ever fished a lake that's like a grass fishery, it has like a lot of hydro, a lot of healthy grass. It's usually got some good fish in there, like all the time, and you get rid of that grass, and it's detrimental to the biology in that place. And so I think that really is the main issue. Sometimes they'll spray just parts of it. It's not. I don't know who's doing it. It's TVA that's spraying it, but they're spraying it, I think, just for boat lanes or for boats to commute, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the only reason. I don't think there's anything beyond that. But I mean, you want to talk about places that like take care of their fisheries. I think Texas is the ones you got to look at if you want to be like, hey, how can we, take a page out of their book and make our place healthy and attract a lot of fishing tourism? You got to look at Texas, man. Letting those fish go right after you catch them, and they do it right down there. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think you and I were talking about this a little while ago. Is that if New York had, if more than just New York, if multiple states had like a Texas Fish and Wildlife, the way that they operated, you'd see world-class fisheries. It'd be insane. absolutely insane with the things that you could do with some of at least these northern fisheries too. The way they operate and actually really truly care for their fish. The only thing that they care about up here is walleye or trout. And that's usually about it.
In recreational boaters.
What's that?
And recreational boaters.
Yeah. That's where all that money is, and it sucks to see it. It really does.
Yes, that's the truth. It's the truth, though.
So, fishing the TVA, obviously, if you're fishing, I don't know if you're a main river guy, if you like to just, pick creeks to go in. I don't know how you kind of operate, what you like to do. But I know, obviously, if you're more of a main river guy, obviously there's a lot more current involved. And I'm very curious on, and I've only fished Chickamauga from the kayak and fished main river a little bit. Obviously there's not a lot of current pumping through Chickamauga when you fish more south.
Sure.
But something like a Pickwick, after what we've seen at the elite event, how are you going about fishing that in terms of, are you launching somewhere and coming back to that launch, or are you kind of doing almost essentially like a float?
You can do any and all of it. And I had buddies that did all different versions of that. And there's not really a bad decision on any of those things, especially in our tournament that we just had where motors were eligible. That was a big, I wasn't running a motor for that event, but the people that were running one, it was the difference between them being able to access a lot of that tail race, a lot of that current water, especially since it was extra pumping these past few weeks with all the rain that we had. Even when it's at its normal flow, it's something that you have to be extra cautious about. And every boater is going to look at you like you're crazy if you're in a kayak going out there and doing it. But if you're a true river rat, you know how to hold your own out there. Yeah, it's no joke. It really does make the difference on those Tennessee River fisheries. Obviously, you can catch them fine without it. But, I mean, you go back over the years and look at so many of the big tournaments that have happened and how many of them, especially when you think of like true ledge season, like, June, July, around that time, those tournaments get won around like 2:30 or in the last few hours of the tournament when they turn those generators on and start pulling that water through and those fish start biting. And you can be sitting on a school of a couple hundred fish out there on any of these fisheries and not have them biting, but as soon as they get that current going, it makes all the difference in the world. But it kind of makes it fun for us kayakers to not have to worry about that current sometimes and go explore the backwaters too. And all these Tennessee River places have no shortage of incredible backwaters. They're more of a seasonal thing when they really shine, but you can do it all. That's why it's some of the best fisheries, because you can do whatever you want to do. If you want to go out there and ledge fish out in the middle of the lake, you're good to go on that. You're going to catch a bunch of fish and catch some big ones, but there's no shortage of big ones sneaking around in the backwaters too, that many of them I'm convinced have never even seen a lure before. So it's whatever you want to do out there, and I like doing a little bit of all of it, honestly.
Yeah. You bring up the motors, and that's something that I was really thinking about as well, was in that for that tournament specifically, how much of an advantage you have if you have a motor, especially being in that current. Because, I mean, granted, just staying in position, but also thinking about how many more casts those people probably had sitting on an area.
Oh, yeah.
Not worrying about adjusting depending on what you got. I mean, even if you have 360, granted, 360 could be efficient in that, but you're still, wasting time, obviously trying to maneuver yourself, fix yourself when you're losing casts or losing an efficient position of how you're going to present it.
It's having those motors for more than anything. It's just a peace of mind, like in that tail race current, where you don't have to have your head on a swivel constantly in case you drift out of that current seam, into the swift stuff. So I think the people with the spot locking motors would probably benefit the most from that. I did practice one day in the tail race, and I've got a Hobie PA 12360. And I've got a Torqeedo. It's just not on that boat yet because I haven't had that Hobie for too long. But I did get the Hobie out in the tail race below Wheeler Dam. So that would technically be Wilson Lake, but below Wheeler Dam. And I barely made it out there into a protected eddy. And it was work, and it wasn't even on the peak of the current days for the week we were down there. So in my opinion, if you're really going to attack that tail race stuff hard and get up in the gnarly current, you just about have to have a motor, or else you're asking for a disaster at some point there. And it's something that, for anyone listening or anyone, wanting to go down there, and I know a lot of people were after watching that elite event too and seeing all the excitement in the current, you really got to be careful. I was telling all my buddies that were gung-ho on getting into that current, I was like, good on you. And there's 1,000 winning limits there every day of the year. So I get it, but you got to be careful, man. It's not for just an amateur to go out there and give it a shot. You'll end up in the water in a hurry or worse. So, but it's famous for a reason. I was telling people, I was like, the TVA tail race, here's your pros and cons. The cons, you snag a lot. The bycatch is terrible. It's crowded. It's dependent on how much current they pull. It's not, those fish are tough to land, especially those big smallmouth. But here's the pro. There's 1,000 winning limits there every day. They're there. They're always there. So that's why it's a fun gamble to see what's going to win a Tennessee River tournament, fish out of the current or going down river or in some backwater. It's always interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at the elite event, the boats that were up there that were somewhat relatively struggling to stay in their spot too. It was interesting to watch, but
I was white knuckling just watching some of that stuff. Steve Kennedy, I was like, I'm about to watch Steve Kennedy. Who's one of my favorite anglers, absolutely one of my favorite anglers. I'm like, I'm about to watch one of my favorite guys go in the water.
Yeah.
So
there was a couple times when he was trying to sit in that small little eddy by that boulder he was fishing, and he would tap the trolling motor. He'd almost go flying in the other way.
Oh yeah, because
he's right under his boat. Sketchy, super sketchy.
Oh yeah, and but nonetheless, obviously that was eventful, so it was fun to watch. But so if you don't have a motor, say you take the tail race out of the fact, because obviously that's its own niche of a fishing situation. But current in general, that's moving at a decent pace. Let's say 1 mile an hour. Something that obviously, if you stop pedaling, if you don't have a motor, is going to actually push you a decent ways. Say you catch a fish in that. Say you take your 360, for example. You're staying in that current efficiently. You catch one. You got to put it on the board. Do you have a process of? Do you kind of just let the river push you along and you'll make your way back up, or do you kind of have a process of not drifting too far out of your position and also getting that thing on the board and in good time?
On the Tennessee River, you always want to know what's behind you if you do drift. Strainers are the biggest thing you got to watch for. That's not really so much of an issue if you're fishing Tennessee River. It's more when we fish our smaller rivers and creeks that are all the moving waters here, especially in Middle Tennessee, which has no shortage of those. Those narrower ones that are just chock full of smallmouth, those are the ones that have the strainers and things that can put you out of your boat in a hurry. I am way more aware of my surroundings on those floats when I hook one, and I may be in a small creek where I can cast from one bank to the other, no problem at all. But those are the ones where you can dump all your stuff and you're doing a true river float and you're not going to be able to recover your stuff easily. So it's more actually the smaller moving waters that I'm watching out for anything that could be an obstacle. But basically just watch behind you. If you do catch that fish, and in the kayak tournaments, we got to get that clean photo on the measuring board there. And if you don't got a spotlight motor, you're going with the water for that time being. So you just got to make a note of what's downriver from you that you could drift into, and if you can, slide off into an eddy, or maybe hug the bank, or get 1 foot up on the bank if that's legal in your tournament. That way you can safely score that fish before you get back into the fast water again. I think most guys, especially in Middle Tennessee, probably have got a lot of experience doing that kind of thing, trying to score a fish in the moving water, because that's something we're used to here.
It's a really good point. Yeah. Now, talking about Tennessee smallmouth a little bit here, it seems like they predominantly obviously show up, and obviously it makes sense that it's in current situations, but have you found those fish to do anything out of the ordinary, or kind of gotten on a deal where it's not a current situation, or is it basically you're only going to find those brown fish if there's moving water?
The times that I can think of when it's not really current related is in the winter time. It's when I dig knock my teeth out. We were talking about it off air a little bit earlier. We like to float a few of these rivers here in the winter because the main river or creek that we're floating will be one temperature, but then the feeder creeks coming in, if you catch it after a warm rain, will have that drastic temperature change. And so all those main river fish, or maybe if they're in a wintering hole in like a deep pocket or something, they'll go as any fish would. Will appreciate that warmer water while it's there. And so it's not uncommon for us in the winter to do a river float, not even fish the main river, and just literally drift from feeder creek to feeder creek, because that's where they congregate, is at the mouth of that, usually right where the main river water mixes with the other water that's going to be warmer. It's not a guarantee that it's there, but for sure some of the bigger and best days we've had in the middle of the winter, when typically hopping on the lake or fishing can get really slow that time of year, that's been one of our favorite times to go out in the dead of winter. And you can have big numbers days and big size days as well. But those feeder creeks are usually the ticket during that time. And they're easy to find. You'll see like there's a visual distinction between the watercolor that's usually there. But if you're running your graph, you can see that the bigger temperature difference, usually the better the bite, because the more the fish are drawn into that warmer water. They're usually in there somewhere and usually pretty happy to eat. And it's all species too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, it's interesting to try to compare southern smallmouth versus northern smallmouth because they act in such different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much experience with southern smallmouth. Like, I have a lot of experience with smallmouth and current. So, and it's relatively similar when it comes to them with current fish, because they're always seeking, like in the spring, winter, they're always seeking that slightly warmer water temp. And it's pretty easy to figure out where they're going to be. They're going to be close to structure that heats up quicker than something else, or a drain that's coming in that's slightly warmer or slightly cooler if it's the summer. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, current is current when it comes to smallmouth. They're always that. Always.
Agreed.
So, because it's an easy ambush point for them, especially if you have current with rock, they can just get all nice and lazy, sit behind that rock and wait for that food to come to them. They don't have to move much or exert even that much energy. So,
yeah,
you guys would be able to show up here and do just fine. Yeah, I think it maybe just a couple different lure consideration changes may be the only thing. But as far as a fish should be right there, they're going to be there the same as you guys would experience up north as you would down here. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's very similar. Like Andrew has the Niagara River, and we have the St. Lawrence River up here as well. And we have some small creeks that are kind of that do have smallmouth in it, and that are obviously very. Current simplifies things, that's for sure. And
it does.
I think, Andrew, you can agree that there is current at play even for those deep Great Lakes fish. There's current at play for that too, and it's obviously just a completely different scenario. But you make the point of different bait selections, and we are not going to throw a 3/4 ounce swim bait head and a 6-inch paddle tail for our smallmouth up here. I mean, I'm sure they'll eat it, but like we're throwing small football jigs and Ned rigs and drop shots, and you guys are throwing giant paddles.
Our brown fish are built different. You guys have those. Your smallmouth have literal smaller mouths. They're more football fish, whereas down here ours lean out more. They're typically not as fat. They're longer. They have bigger mouths. They're used to living their whole lives like in moving water. So it's a different thing, and like. I don't really get into the whole debate of which one fights hard. It's a smallmouth. They're going to give you a good ride no matter what it is or where it is you hook into one.
And the more they fight,
you almost hate the current once you're hooked up, because if they get into that stuff, I mean, you guys saw it on that Pickwick Elite event. Like it's really tough to land those things if they get out into that moving water. It's tough to land them in calm water. So I don't make it a battle.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And it brings up an interesting point, though, which I had a long time ago. I created a smallmouth panel, and I had on two buddies of mine, Alex Rudd and Caleb Bell, who are from Tennessee, fish a lot of the TVA. And one of the topics we brought up, and I'm very curious to get your take on this, being that you're from the same area, and I believe Alex might have even looked into this or is looking into this with a fishing biologist. or a fish biologist, is that you take a smallmouth out of the TVA and a smallmouth out of the Great Lakes and see if that's a completely different species of smallmouth.
I'd be curious to hear any information on that. I know that it is way more common for our smallmouth here to hybridize, especially with the spotted bass. The spots down here can almost be invasive in a lot of our waters. More when you get down in those Alabama strain of spots in the state of Georgia. There's a lot of places where they'll encourage you to just get rid of the spots there because they will over aggressively hybridize and make those mean mouse. But I would think that just a hybridizing factor, since you guys don't have spotted bass regularly up there, correct? Yeah. So I would think that alone would play a big factor into what kind of like genealogy results you might find out from that. But I should be curious to hear whatever's found out. That sounds interesting to me.
Yeah. It's a cool topic to kind of try and dive into, just because they look completely different. Their build is completely different, but it's cool. It's a cool kind of thing to dive into because, like, you know, a lot of people obviously talk about largemouth and Florida strain and how all of them differently, you know, how they act, you know, around the country. And it's, you know, you have Great Lakes smallmouth and TVA smallmouth and how they both set up on current, and then you have like a Finger Lake smallmouth that is pelagic, like 9 months out of the year. Where it's like you can get on them really good for 3 months, and then you're chasing them around like a chicken with his head cut off the rest of the year. So it's kind of interesting to kind of look into that behavior.
Quick question, Bailey. Have you ever noticed the size of the mouth difference between our Finger Lake smallmouth and the Great Lake smallmouth?
I could barely today. I had one that was 4'8", and I could barely fit my thumb inside its mouth. It was so small. Dude, like I don't. But now that you say it, though, not really. I guess I mean there could be, but it's not really something I've actually kind of noticed for one, or two, even kind of looked into.
Here's the big difference. Take the goby Finger Lakes, the Finger Lakes that have gobies in them, and the Finger Lakes that don't have gobies, and examine the difference between them.
Oh, I bet.
So look at, like, we'll call it the Western Finger Lakes compared to the one big one that you fish and the couple big ones that have gobies in them, right? Those goby eaters tend to be tall and wide and short, fat.
Yeah, they're taller and wider than they are long.
But when you get into the other ones that don't have the gobies, they're more alewive and perch eaters. They tend to be longer, slender, bigger mouths. Like,
that's a very good point, Andrew.
So if you were to put like a Seneca or a Cayuga next to like a Canisius or an Owasco fish, they're going to be completely different genetic makeup.
And I think there could be something to be said about different classes of fish now.
Yeah.
In certain lakes too. Because I think I've seen both on the same fishery, where you catch them that are typically you have a specific presentation on bottom that have that genetic makeup that you just mentioned, and you'll catch one in the summer, you know, schooling, and it has that longer body, bigger mouth. I'm gonna look back on my pictures now that we're talking about this after the show here, and dive into that, see if that that trend could be kind of put into a test.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
We need more buddies that are wildlife officers that like know more of the details and answers to all these thoughts and considerations.
Well, even the same thing, like on a Pickwick event, right? So some of those Pickwick like tailweight Wilson tail races, some of them are tall, fat, and wide, and then if they caught them downriver, they were longer and more slender and drawn out. And why is that? Why do you have two different body shapes, smallmouth? Largemouth all pretty much look the same once they get to a certain size. So why do smallmouth take on different body characteristics?
Bowling balls, not even footballs. Bowling balls.
you can. I know down here you can fish some giant baits for smallmouths, and you're well within your right to do that and not risking like not getting that smallmouth hooked up because their mouths can eat. My PB smallmouth come out of Pickwick on a 9-inch swim bait. Like You can throw the big stuff for them down here because they can eat it. They're used to eating those giant gizzard shad, but they're not those little goby morsels that are just pure fat and protein, plump up for the winter time. It's a different thing. I'm sure the forage has a huge factor in what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I don't think it even stops our fish up here. I know guys up here that throw big baits.
Oh yeah,
do on the same stuff. They're not afraid. That's by any means, but
they just eat. They like eating. They're like that kid that goes to McDonald's. They just can't get enough of anything.
Yeah, I had that in common with the fish then.
Well, dude, so
I give you an example of how small our Great Lake mouth fish are. That's almost a 4.5 pounder.
Yeah, that's wild.
Like,
Wild, dude.
Okay, let's pull up something real quick just to show people who are tuning in that are from the west or down south and haven't seen too many northern fish. Let me give you guys an example here.
Little bitty mouth.
yeah, and you can almost tell how long he was. Like that was a long fish.
Yep.
Give you guys an example of the genetic makeup of some of our northern fish here real fast, and then we're obviously going to move on to our next topic here.
And then there's a 6 pounder.
Yeah. So there's a genetic makeup for you of our northern fish where they are taller.
Blimps. They're just blimps. They're swollen. They look like they have a health issue or something. They're so
That is a big old female with a belly full of prime egg specimens in her right there.
Yeah.
And those are all just pure smallmouth too. They're not hybridized at all. I'm sure those got to be as pure as can be.
Right. And then here's a 6 pounder from the river and current. Real long.
Big mouth. Yeah.
Slender, but a bigger mouth on it. And I think that one might have been a perch eater. So depending on what they have different genetic code on them. It's weird.
Sure.
Very sure. Well, Adam, I wanted to bring up because I know that you're a guide as well, and I'm very curious. One, what are you guiding from? And I'm very curious about just to learn more about your guide business and kind of how you run that.
Yeah, I run a very haphazardly guide business is the answer to that. When my service industry job fell out from under my feet last year during COVID, I knew I wanted to get a guide business started. I was just forced to start it, in my opinion, a little prematurely and earlier than I wanted to. I wanted to have all my ducks in a row a little bit better before I did it. But I was like, I don't have a choice. I just got to get going with this. And luckily, it's been all good, and I've had nothing but great clients and successful trips. But the way I describe it to my clients is, I say, if we want to fish out of your bass boat, I'll hop on your. I only have a kayak. That's all I have. So I'm like, if you want me to hop on your bass boat with you, I'll do that. And if you want me to provide a kayak for you, I can do that. Bring your own kayak, obviously, we can do that too. And I think the way I've advertised myself is I'm like, if you want to learn just some bass fishing techniques, we can do it. If you want to catch fish that day, we can. If you want to learn how to catch fish for future outings, we can. If you want to just trophy chase, we can do that. I offer the big swim bait stuff too. I've enjoyed doing that over the years. So I've had a few clients want to do like just the big swim bait thing, which isn't quite as explored in the Southeast here. So I just kind of, I really enjoy a dialogue with potential clients and kind of feel out what it is they want to do. And luckily, everyone I've had so far, I've hit it off with well, and whatever their goal was for that day or for our trip has been a very feasible one, and something that we can, it's within our realm to accomplish whatever it is. And I've done everything that I just named off. I'll do electronics trips. I popped on a guy's bass boat, dialed in his electronics, showed him how to use it, and then he'll text me next week and tell me that he won a tournament based off of what we learned during our outing doing that. So it's a little bit of everything, but due to the fact that guiding is newer to me, and that I did have to jump into it earlier than I wanted to, I just made sure that any of my rates or costs were less than what you would have to pay for the same thing if you were to get a more established guide or something like that. And the truth is, my schedule has been so busy with tournaments that the guiding is just kind of supplementing the days or weeks that I'm home when I'm not on the road fishing a tournament. and I've been able to fill in those gaps in my schedule with some guide trips by doing that. So guiding, I don't think, at least not right now, perhaps later down the road, it may be the main thing. But for now, it was just like, I need to get my feet wet and learn how to do it, learn my strengths in doing it, and kind of feel out what the demand is from the clients. And I'm the son of 2 teachers. So instruction and dialogue and communication and installing confidence is something that I feel like I'm good at, and I have those as strengths. And so I found doing the guide thing to be a pretty natural thing for me to hop into. And more than anything, I just enjoy it, man. Again, I'm so passionate about fishing that if I can share some knowledge, and I think we would all agree, we're in a sport where so much of what we do is hand me down information, or we all have our mentors, a handful of mentors, and what we've learned, or people that we can accredit, our knowledge base of fishing for. So it's, at the end of the day, just being able to share that thing and watch someone get excited over a catch, or have them text me a week or 2 later and be like, I caught a fish based on what we learned that day we went out. There's nothing better than that. And you got, Andrew or Bailey, if you guys do any guiding, like, I'm sure you can attest the same thing. There's nothing more rewarding. I'm equally rewarding in catching a big fish myself as I am hearing from someone else saying that they were able to get a big bite or figure out something that was that light bulb going off for them too. So I just really enjoy it. I kind of wish I had more time to do it, and maybe I will down the road, but for now it's pretty busy on the tournament things. But yeah, the guide thing, I feel kind of weird using that term, but so far it's been good. So I guess I'll hang on to it and keep doing it for now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I like how creative you get with it, though. You got like so many different avenues. And Andrew, I know that's something that you're doing as well, is the kind of like, do you have a technique you want to learn more about? That sort of deal. That's pretty sick. And I think that's something that I didn't realize was in such a demand as people that want to be taken out and learn something rather than seeing it on YouTube and then going and trying to do it themselves. It's kind of just accelerates that learning curve, which is honestly pretty smart on your guys' front.
Yeah, luckily I haven't had anyone that's like gung-ho on, oh, we got to catch a bunch of fish this day type of thing. I think there's way more to stand to benefit as a client, at least for a client that I would have. I will be able to teach you more that's going to help you to catch fish in future outings than just trying to go out there and crush them that day. That's a little more conditional type of thing. During the spring, I will offer like some lunker trips, or I'm a big sight fisherman too. So right now I'm offering trips for sight fishing, or if anyone just wants to catch a PB or a fish of a lifetime, it's about the best time as you can ask for to do it the next few weeks. So that's another route I'll go. But yeah, I'd much rather instill some knowledge and confidence for future stuff than try to have a whale of a day out there. And every once in a while you can have those big days and do both in the same, I suppose.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Is that what those fish are doing down there now? They're getting up and doing the dirty?
Oh yeah, they've been spawning for a little bit now. It's not our big wave. Our next full moon, I think, is going to be the biggest wave, like regionally, as far as a bunch of them going up. But I've caught a handful off of beds so far. Just 2 days ago, myself and Russ Snyders were out there, and I think a good bit of the fish I know a good bit of the fish we were catching. We weren't sight fishing them, but blind casting the stuff, and you check out that tail, you see that bloody tail, you know what they're doing up there. But yeah, the temperatures are right, the moon phases are right. It's pretty much going off. We have had the flood waters here that are making it a little bit more challenging for the fish, but at the end of the day, they want to go up and do their thing. And so if you know where to look, you can go find them doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really quick. So we had our Monday Night Live recently with Jeff Queen, and he's a Carolina guy. Very, very good sight fisherman, regionally renowned for sight fishing. And that was one of the questions we had for him. And obviously, being in the Carolinas, he doesn't have a lot of experience with fluctuating water, which is why I wanted to ask you, you get a wave, right? Conditions are setting up right, temperatures, moon phase, time of year, fish are ready to go and get up and do their thing. They move up, you see these fish moving up, and overnight that water drops. What is kind of your adjustment there when you know that they are spawning, they want to spawn, they've already got the process of getting up shallow, making bed, and then the water drops.
It's a common scenario we deal with down here. And to me, I just kind of take a step back. I mean, it's the textbook thing. You just find the spot they pull back off to. It's probably the spot they stopped at on the way in, and you just find that spot. Or say if there was a bunch of shallow cover bushes or wood that had water on it, the ideal spawning stuff, and that water started to pull out. Well, maybe those fish that were way back in that cover are now on the outside of that cover, or they're on like the first bit of wood before it drops off into coverless, featureless water or something like that. They'll just pull back. You just take a few steps back, and it depends on what kind of body of water you're on, but just back up a little bit, whether it's a secondary point or maybe a secondary point's even too drastic. It might just be a foot or two past that. So you just kind of, I like this time of year, I like going all the way to the back or all the way to the shallowest stuff and then working my way back out from there to usually find them. And sometimes you can find those stopping points where you still got fish coming in, and the ones that are going out are going to stop there too. And anyone fishing the spawn or spring will tell you those are some of the best spots too. So just take a step back and find a little stopping point. That's kind of a vague answer, but it varies fishery by fishery, but it's the truth. That's a textbook thing. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that. Andrew, you got anything for Adam before we start letting it rip with our last question here?
No, I just want to say thank you for taking the time tonight, for telling everybody your story and us your story, and giving us a little bit of experience. I'm actually excited to watch where your guiding stuff goes. As I have my captain's license, so I'm going to be guiding this year on Lake Erie and the Upper Niagara, Lake Ontario for some smallmouth and stuff. I get going here in about a week. But that's awesome, and congrats on going back to work, and hope you win some derms this summer. That'd be nice too.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the guiding thing. The way I kind of look at it is like, if you're driving down the road and you're looking for a place to eat, and like you've got the familiar places that might be good, but every once in a while there's that hole in the wall spot that you're like, man, you just know from now on if you try it out, like it was so good, it was kind of a home run. I feel like I'm kind of that guy. I'm like, hey, if you just get a trip with me, I'll deliver, but I understand I don't have like the bells and whistles and the advertisement or all the compilation of photos yet. So I think for now I'm happy to just focus on the tournament and still just getting better. I am always trying to learn. That's a big thing. Anyone that's wanting to get better at fishing, you have to have a hunger to learn.
Oh, yeah.
With every single outing, you got to be willing to not throw the baits that are in your comfort zone, and just wanting to just be hungry to learn and find creative ways to learn and get on the water as much as possible. That's the biggest difference I see from guys that fish tournaments that do well and do better over time versus the guys that never quite seem to finish the money. You just what's your hunger to learn? Do you want to be versatile? Do you want to expand your horizons and throw those lures that are outside of your confidence zone? That's what I see the most. So yeah, we'll see what guiding happens, but I'm more than happy just to keep fishing and hopping in these derbies for now. But I appreciate that, Andrew.
Heck yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I think it's a great point real fast is if you want to see yourself on the top, you can't be a fair weather fisherman, a 3 hours in the morning every couple of days or something kind of guy. You got to be the guy that's willing to go out no matter the conditions and put the work in. And so a lot of that time might not even be fishing. It might be.
You'll see some of those guys that are naturals that you're like, what? You ain't even practice. You're just showing up and you're winning. You do see those guys every once in a while, but you want to consistently be up there. Yeah. They do. They really do. Their instincts and their gut decisions are usually those guys that can just kind of wing it are the best, like intuitive fishermen, as opposed to the just a huge book of knowledge of.
It's blowing south today, 8 to 12. I'm going to throw a spinnerbait just because of the wind and the clouds. I'm flipping now, but that wind is starting to pick up. I should pick up a spinnerbait, and they catch one first cast. Like I knew it, and then they just start jamming out. They're like, "What the heck?"
Yeah. So, dude, I got two last questions for you here before we wrap things up. And getting off the guide topic here, I'm very curious if you have like whether memorable in a good way or a bad way, like a crazy guide story that might come to mind.
Off the top of my head, man, I really enjoyed this one with a couple of guys that I did recently on Del Hollow. Somewhat recently, they wanted some I think the goal is basically just to wrap their mind around some of their electronics on their kayaks. So it was myself and my kayak, and then these two individuals were in their own kayaks. And I knew this was over the winter, and wintertime on Del Hollow, you better know how to do some vertical fishing. Probably a lot of what you guys do. It's basically ice fishing. Is you're just doing it when there's not ice in the water is how I look at it. But that's an easy and fun lesson for me to show people. And anyone that hasn't done any video game fishing, I think that's a quick one to learn for the most part. You basically just got to keep your lure in that sonar cone, and the rest kind of like takes care of itself. But so we did a long day, and I was showing them different stuff, and in addition to the video game fishing thing. And then once I believed that I conveyed the whole concept of the thing, we were able to go and practice it for a little bit. And so we're dropping on some arches on some fish and watching them come up, and take a look at the lure. It's basically Damiki rig fishing, and they would not have interest and go back down. And then towards the end of the day, we're messing with these fish that again are just coming up and looking at it and not wanting to do anything. We're watching it all happen on the graph. And then and one of the now that I remember this, one of the guys didn't have a graph on his boat, so I let him just get up right next to my Hobie and look at my screen, but he's dropping his lure in the sonar cone, and he just had a giant largemouth on the screen come up, hit it. He got to watch the whole thing happen on the screen, and I got to watch his rod double over. It was a big one, hooting and hollering, and so we got a big fish to end the day. And even that guy was just texting me today about how valuable that day's lesson was, and just the excitement that you can get off of seeing that, and having the whole lesson come to fruition, like at the end of the day, like that one really stands out to me. And I just know the genuine excitement of these guys that I'm referring to that fish a lot of our local club stuff here too. They're really good guys, and so that one definitely left a good memory with me. Just anytime you can have the concept happen that you're one, that was the goal, to watch those fish come up and eat. And even if we didn't have one eat, they at least were going to be able to take that lesson later. But to get that big bite and actually watch it happen, and we didn't know if it was going to be a smallmouth or a largemouth, turned out to be a good largemouth. That was a really fun one. So that's going to be my answer as far as a memorable outing with some clients.
Sweet.
That's pretty sick. Yeah, that's got to feel really good, dude. Heck yeah. Well, our last question for you, and that's one we asked for everyone that's new to the show, is if you could sit down, have a beer, have a steak with three different individuals, whether they were around 1,000 years ago or they're still alive today, it does not matter. Doesn't even have to be the fishing industry.
It can be anyone, anywhere, anytime. And we could even throw a wrinkle in here going forward and say maybe somebody in the future that could be like an up-and-coming star.
And you know what? I've heard you guys ask that question before, and it provokes me to consider that too. And I don't think I ever actually came up with an answer. I can tell you this: all my answers are going to be like weirdos. Like people that fascinate me are like the weirdos, the oddballs out there. So it's probably people that are probably not alive, really misunderstood, or really like I don't know, man.
I like that. That's interesting. That makes things interesting.
I was a musician in a former life, and so there's a lot of like oddball creative types that weren't understood during their era, but later on were recognized as geniuses. And so after saying that, let me think who it would be. I'll throw it Jimi Hendrix as one. I got to think that guy's got to spout off some kind of good knowledge. Let's think of who else might be a fun one too. Oh man, what was the crazy Russian dude with the big beard that was like kind of a mystic? I'm blanking on his name right now, and that's going to bug me really bad. Yeah, just some weirdos.
I can Google Russian man beard that's mystic.
Oh God, it's bugging me so bad. He was also known for some other stuff that's not really like podcast friendly to talk about. Oh God, is it Rasputin? Yeah, Rasputin. I think Rasputin. I think that's who it is. Google that real quick and tell me if that comes out. I think that's correct. We'll say Hendrix.
Grigory Rasputin, Russian mystic and self-proclaimed holy man who befriended the family of Nicholas II, the last emperor.
Yeah, he's got a crazy story, and so I'm sure he's such a weirdo that he'd probably, if we could get a translator, have something interesting to talk. Yeah, there we go. There he is. Yeah, how would you like to sit across the table from that guy? For those of y'all being able to see the
look at this. Look at that stare. Look at that stare.
After this podcast, read up on that dude and tell me you wouldn't want to, like, with maybe a little bit of caution, learn more about that guy. Let's see. Let me think of a third one that would be. Oh, a third one. I'm a big fan of comedy too, so I'm going to say Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks is kind of a comedic hero of mine too. I know not a lot of people are going to know who that is, but that'll just inspire them to go and watch a documentary. He's got a bunch of Netflix stand-up specials. Yeah, I think that's a good combination. Hendrix, Rasputin, Bill Hicks. That'll be my trio of people.
Taking a beer table.
What did it say that again?
That'd be an interesting steak and a beer, like, dinner date, to sit down and talk to those four at the same time. Whew.
Boy, I wouldn't want the conversation to end. I know there'd be a few beers consumed and all kinds of weird concepts thrown out there. Again, I fully acknowledge those are all weirdos and unique individuals, but I kind of think of myself as the same way sometimes. So why not have a conversation with a like-minded person, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair enough.
Hell yeah, dude.
I like that.
That's that might be our most interesting three we've ever had on this show.
Well, that's how I would want it. I don't want it to be a generic answer. That's boring.
I love that, dude. Because like we get all the time, we either get Trump, KVD, or like I'm trying to think who's another popular answer that we get.
Boring.
What's his name? Elon Musk is a pretty
we get Elon Musk a lot.
That's boring. We all know plenty. These are all people that we know plenty about. We know too much about all these people. Why not have a conversation with someone that we are, has a bunch of question marks behind their legacy? Those are the people you want to know, right?
Yeah. Like I'd love to sit down with like Steve Irwin and wonder what the hell he did when he wasn't like terrorizing.
That's a good one.
When he wasn't trying to tackle alligators, what the hell did he do with his free time?
He would for sure have something interesting to offer to say. Yeah.
Right.
Like,
well, dude,
you're in a boxing match with a kangaroo,
like a kangaroo Jack scene when he gets knocked out by the kangaroo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, endless stories if you're that guy, I'm sure.
Oh, probably. Well, dude, Adam, we really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. Cheers to you, buddy, and obviously we'd love to have you on down the road. Hopefully, get a couple wins and get you on to hear how it goes and see what's going on with the guide business. But, dude, for real, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank y'all, man. Talking fishing is something that I enjoy and do on the reg. So happy to do it anytime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sounds good, dude. We will be in touch and take care, man.
Adios.
See ya. Good dude. I think it was really intriguing to see the creativity of the guide business, different avenues. It could be some inspiration for you, dude. Some 9-inch, 10-inch swim baits on Lake Erie.
Be wild.
Do you think how long do you think it would take you to get bit on a 9 or 10-inch swim bait on Lake Erie?
I don't think it would take too long. It's just getting them to eat it properly because those smallies get mad. They thump things for no reason. So, I mean, I'm sure you can get them to hit it. It's just hooking them is an entirely different equation.
Was it Oliver Nye that caught like a 6-pounder on St. Clair on one because he was like muskie fishing?
Yeah.
I want to say that's what it was. That'd be really intriguing. That'd be like a little video series of how long does it take me to catch a smallmouth on a 9-10-inch swim bait on Lake Erie?
Yeah, it'd be wild.
That would be, stuff that you probably just,
You know what would happen, right? So you throw this 9 and 10-inch swim bait for like a week straight. You'll catch 5 muskie and a 10-inch smallmouth.
You catch this tiniest one.
So mad that it's like, what is this thing? You end up hooking it in the eye or something, or feel really bad.
Right. Dude, so obviously we have a bunch of kayakers that are on the show as well. We like to mix things up on this show. We like to have a mix of everybody in fishing because that's just what we love to do. Do you ever think, and this is an idea, actually Destin and I were on the phone talking about this video idea here, but do you think you would ever try fishing from a kayak?
Absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, because I have a video idea that Destin and I want to do, and we could totally do one as well together, you and I, is you do, one guy has an hour on the boat on the trolling motor, the other guy's in the kayak, and then you flip-flop. So it's a 1v1. One guy gets the boat for an hour or two, and then the other guy gets the kayak.
It'd be fun. I think I would do that.
Would you trust me in your boat?
Yeah, you get started and drive.
Yeah.
No, I think I would let you if you knew how. So
It's kind of like a fun little thing to think about, which is kind of cool. It adds a little factor to it. But I told Destin I was going to take his Dura-Edge boat and run around the lake and make people think I'm a pro.
it's probably like, no.
Isn't that guy in the Elite Series who's doing circles in the middle of the lake?
Shooting like towers of water up because you trimmed it all the way up. Why are you moving?
Like, look at that guy rooster tailing. Now, what an idiot. That's funny.
Hit the gas and the nose goes straight up and you're shooting a rooster tail because you're trimmed all the way up. Yeah, that'd be
probably. But for real, really good show tonight, guys. Thank you again to Adam for coming on. A lot of good knowledge dropped in this episode here tonight.
Okay.
So guys, tune in. We appreciate it as always. Andrew, anything left for the folks before we tune out tonight?
If you're listening this far in, get a hold of me. Let's get you on the water because I have very few dates left. And there's a $100 gift card up for grabs for Big Fish of the Year. So the season's going. We're starting. I have trips starting the 17th, and I'm pretty much booked through July with like 4 or 5 days open. So let me know. Let's go.
Heck yeah. I think to add on that real quick before we sign off, if you guys are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please go down and leave us a rating and review. We highly appreciate it. Like we mentioned before, it helps us get noticed more and helps us make better episodes for you guys. So
absolutely. And always suggestions and feedback. Always.
Yeah. Guest suggestions, topics, all the above. We appreciate it nonetheless. But as always, folks, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We will see you guys on Monday.